We need to talk about some things that we can't do in the studio. So, all right, I'm not supposed to. Yeah, in the studio. And specifically natural light on location. So we can't just travel the world and do all these things. So we're going to try to do it via the presentation here. So the golden hour is something that all scenic photographers and portrait photographers should know about. And it is sometimes referred to as the magic hour. And it is traditionally it's the hour right after the sun comes up and the hour right before the sun goes down at the beginning and end of the day. But technically, it is when the sun is 6 degrees above and below the horizon. That's when this magic happens. And what that magic is the sun is so low in the sky, the light has to travel a greater distance through the atmosphere. And so what happens is the atmosphere actually strips out a lot of the blue in the sunlight, and it makes the sun look orange and golden, and that's why it's called the golden hour. And so not only is it this really pleasing light, it's very warm, it's very directional and low. And so you have the ability, if you're shooting at the golden hour, to choose the kind of light you want. And so Lex, we'll have you come out here for just a second so I can just show you some. I'll sort of model this with Alexis here. I didn't tell her we were doing this, so this is on this. Sorry. Hey. So if you'll stand here and then come out just a little bit, so maybe right there. Okay, perfect. So if I'm, let's say, a portrait photographer and I want to shoot at the golden hour, the nice thing is I can shoot with the sun to my back and it's going to hit my subject straight on, and that's going to give me that flat light, just like we saw with the crazy little thing earlier today. Or I can shoot with her to the side like this, and we're going to get side light. Or I can have her go all the way back like this, and I can have light coming from behind and use a reflector or a fill flash to get something that's really pleasing. And when we go outside and we actually start shooting on location, we're going to find out that it's generally better to shoot with the sun coming into the camera than it is to shoot this way, where if Lex turns around, she's going to have this going on. The sun is melting me. And so one of the things that a lot of beginning photographers do is they'll take their subject and immediately they'll stick them right here with the sun behind their head, and they'll get squinty, nasty pictures and people crying, and it's really not good. We don't want to do that. So we're going to learn how to sort of control that. All right, thank you. We're going to learn how to fix all of those things. So the golden hour is spectacular, and it not only is good for portrait photography, but for scenic photos, it is great. I live in Arizona, and everybody comes to Arizona to go see the Grand Canyon, and so many people get to the Grand Canyon and are blown away at how huge it is. It's massive, hundreds of miles long, and they take pictures, and their pictures come out, and they don't look anything like the Grand Canyon we all see in the postcards. And the reason for that is most photographers are shooting in the middle of the day when the sun is in the middle of the sky, and we don't get all those shadows that sort of define what the Grand Canyon is or whatever scenic thing is that you're shooting. And it's not that warm color. So generally, if you're doing scenic photos, you should do them at the right time of day, which is during the golden hour. The other thing with the golden hour, before we see some pictures here, is there's a thing called particulate matter, or pollution. And so it's different in the morning and in the evening. And so if you live in a place like Houston, which is really polluted, or Phoenix, which is really polluted, or LA, which is really polluted, those kind of places, you get some really amazing things because the sun goes way down at night and the sunsets are brilliant, because what's happening is there's all this dust and exhaust and stuff that's floating in the air, and the sun actually hits that and refracts, and that's what gives us those amazing sunsets, is the nasty dust and pollution. And so there is more of that in the evening than there is in the morning, because in the morning people have stopped driving, all the construction work has stopped, and so in cities, not necessarily out in nature, you'll get more particulate matter in the evening than you will in the morning. And so you can get 2 different golden hours in a day. It's really cool. And depending on which way you want to shoot, if you have a mountain that's on this side, you're going to have to shoot at sunset, if that's the east, or if you have, depending on what side of the thing is that you want to shoot, you'll have to choose either morning or night. So you're at the mercy of the sun, which is really cool. So I actually went out in the desert and shot some stuff a while back, and these are golden hour photos of the Sonoran Desert, about an hour outside of where I live. And you can see these are really clearly, the sun is very, very low to the horizon. And for this, I actually shot into the sun. And the reason I did that was I wanted to have those, I wanted to have these cactus sort of glowing. And you can see right here, there's some lens flare, but these are sort of glowing. You can see another shot here. This is of Lex. And we shot this for ProPhoto, actually, their new, the new ProPhoto B1. And this was shot, and the sun was just about to go over the horizon. But you see this right here, where the sun, you can actually see the rays. Those are called crepuscular rays. And I should have written it out so you'd know how to spell them. But when the sun, or any light, travels through an atmospheric condition, fog, dust, whatever, and you can actually see what one of my students called Jesus beams, that little, those are technically called crepuscular rays. And so one of the tricks in scenic photography, and since this is as close to scenic photography as I get as a model in lingerie in the desert, a lot of photographers want those rays of light. There's a place in Arizona that's very, very famous called Antelope Canyon. It's these really awesome desert walls, and you see these beams of light coming in all the time. If you ever go there, what you'll find is that the tour guides take the dust and they just throw it in the air all day. They're just throwing dust in the air. And that's how you can see the beams of light. So it's any time that light is traveling through some kind of atmospheric condition, that's crepuscular rays. And the more directional the light and the harder the light, the more apparent these rays are. So if this was a really cloudy day, we wouldn't have had this beam of light here because it would have been too diffused. And so I was helping a student who wanted to figure out how to have this little rock and roll kind of set. I should have brought out this picture, but he wanted to drill holes in a board, and he wanted to have beams of light coming out, sort of like the X-Files showing everywhere, and he couldn't figure out how to make that happen. And what we had to do was, add a bunch of smoke in the studio, but we had to add very directional lights. So we put grids, we'll show you these grids, but the light has to be really directional to get those beams. And a lot of people want those beams, but it's directional light going through some kind of atmospheric thing. Those are called crepuscular rays. And you can contrast this, so this very, very hard directional light. By the way, she was filled in, see the shadows here? So that's a giveaway that there was a flash involved. And we're gonna talk about parabolic light modifiers later, but this was a parabolic umbrella, which gives her, you see on her arms, there's this dark outline through her face and on her arms. It's almost like somebody took a Sharpie and outlined her body. That's from something called a parabolic light modifier, where the light is coming straight in. When it comes straight in, it hits here, but it falls off on the side, and so you get this sort of dark surrounding. So this is a video on ProPhoto's website, actually. You can see it. We shot that in, it was 30 seconds, right? Yeah. We were showing how fancy this thing was, and we timed it. We shot this, we had 30 seconds to do it. I think, no, it was 60 seconds. I think it was about 60 seconds, yeah. From setup to shoot, this happened in 60 seconds. So anyway, I don't want to sell ProPhoto gear, but it's amazing. This is not golden hour. This is in the Redwoods up in outside of Crescent City, California, where I went to high school. And the difference between this light, this is very, very, how would you describe this? I'm going to put you guys on the spot. How would you describe this, hard or soft light? Soft light, yes. Yay. Very diffused light. And we have issues with dynamic range here. So you see how this is falling out of the camera's dynamic range. We had those issues. We see this, we've got specular highlights here on the top of these beams, on the top of that tree. This is a very saturated, colorful image. So we have that. This is not golden hour, this is just soft light. So don't confuse those two. We can do scenic photography that's in soft light like this, or you can do stuff at golden hour. This, by the way, if this was in the rain, something we hadn't talked about, I'll just bring it up now. What we would have is we would have lots of specular highlights, all these specular highlights on these rails and stuff, on these stairs and all the leaves. We would have, if everything was wet, we would have lots of specular highlights coming into the lens, and light would be scattering off of all that water everywhere, and it would actually give our camera some problems with contrast. And so to fix that, there is a filter called a circular polarizer. And so if you're a scenic photographer, the circular polarizer will help you overcome those issues. You can actually twist it, and all the shiny stuff that's sort of coming in just goes away. and you can shoot. So in this situation, I didn't need one, but if it was raining or it had been wet, I would definitely have needed a circular polarizer for that shot. Okay, that's golden hour and not golden hour. But let's talk about natural light modifiers in the context of shooting a person, taking pictures of a person. So what we want to do is I want to show you a few things. So we have reflectors. And what reflectors will help us do, and I've got one over here, I'll just show you. What reflectors help us do is they fill in light, so they help us overcome that dynamic range issue where we have something that's too dark. It will help us do something like if we were shooting with the sun to our subject's back, if we want to bounce some light in, we can do that. And normally, a reflector is going to give us directional light. So it's actually bouncing in very directionally, depending on the type of reflector. We can have it either more or less directional. The second thing we're going to talk about and work with is something like this. This is called a diffusion panel. And what it does is it becomes artificial clouds. And it will help us soften the light. And we will want to have different sizes of those. We have a huge one here, but you can get smaller ones as well. And then I'm going to describe for you with the whiteboard. Don't let me forget. It's up to you. Don't let me forget to talk about open shade versus closed shade, because I'm going to forget. Because when we get outside, we have to understand that all shade is not created equal. We can have different kinds of shade, and some of it is better than others, which is sort of cool. So we're going to do that, and then we're going to learn why our camera's light meter sucks, which is awesome. But here we go. Wow. I know. Pretty cool, huh? So this is a traditional, this is a very high quality reflector, and it has two sides. It's got silver and white. Now, why do you suppose it has a silver and a white? Any guesses? I'll give you a hint. It's about the specular highlights. So white is less specular than silver. So this is going to, if you see on the floor here, look on the floor. See how much light that is showing? And you can actually see the shape of the reflector on the floor. So it's very specular. We can actually see the size and the shape of the reflection on the floor, and if it was on a person or whatever, same thing would apply. Whereas the white, look at this. You can't really see it. You can see reflection, but you can't see the shape, and it's not as clear. So this is a more diffused light. This is a more directional light. This is more specular. This is less specular. You can also get these in translucent material. It's the same as this, but it's just this size. We didn't get one for this workshop because we already had one. And then you can also get these in black. There are many companies that make these in something that's called a 5-in-1 reflector, and I highly recommend that you either get a few of these, this is a really high quality reflector, or get some 5-in-1 reflectors. And a 5-in-1 reflector is basically this same type of frame. In the middle of it is a translucent piece of material, and then over that, this material is wrapped. And so it has white on one side and silver on the other, and then that's reversible, and then you'll have two other colors, either a black and a gold, or a gold-silver mix, and so you get 5 different reflectors and a translucent modifier all in one. So that's why it's called a 5-in-1. And these fold up, yeah, like that. And anybody from Arizona can do this, and people outside of Arizona have never seen this thing before, because we have things in our cars. You guys have these in other cities that you, yeah, it's so funny that, it's just fun to do that. All right, so that's what this is. Not so specular, very specular. This is used a lot for fashion work. Like, so I'm going to have you come out again. I'm going to show you. And to make this work, I'm going to have you stand here. Yeah, about right there. Let's see if I can. So see how this is uneven light on her? So a lot of fashion photography in magazines and stuff, they'll use this where it's an uneven, highly specular light on a subject. And we're going to turn on the real sun here in a little bit, and you're going to be blasted. And you can see how that is filling her as opposed to this white where we don't get, can't even see it, right? Like, what's the use? But we will be able to see it. We'll be able to do a bunch of things. All right, thank you. So yeah, this is much more specular. And you can even see it on the, look at that. You can change the shape of that as well. See how it's vertical? You can do that. You can shape these. So we're going to be working with this quite a bit. All right. So what we want to do here is we have created artificial sun. So John, you are the sun. Da, 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 da. Here it goes, the sunshine. This light, by the way, I don't know if we can show that. This is called an Airy Open Face 2K. And the reasons, Airy is the brand, A-R-R-I. open face because it has nothing in front of it. It's an open face light. It just lets light come out. And 2K stands for 2,000 watts. And with incandescent lights like this, the power output is measured in watts. So just like the bulbs that you put in, 100 watt, 60 watt. So this is 2,000 watts. And that in lighting terms is not really tons of power for movies and stuff like that. So usually you'll get it in a 5K, 10K, 20K. Like these are really, really big. And this is very, very hot light. This is called a hot light. And you can actually feel the heat from here, which is what, 12, 15 feet away? Yeah, you can feel how hot it is from right here. It's going to be boiling. Okay, so we have that. Alexis, come on out here. Yay for you. Alexis perpetually freezing in the studio, and I'm perpetually hot, so you're going to like, can you feel that heat?
Yeah, I like it.
It is like, hot. Okay, so I need some help from you guys, so come on out. Let's have the front 3 row people. Front 3 row people. That front 3 row people, is that a term? Okay, it is now. So you guys are going to be assistants. So the first thing we're going to do is, Lex, I'm going to have you stand here, just like that. And what we're going to look at, and if you guys come over here so the cameras can see everything clearly, thank you. What we're looking at here is the shadow. Now, her shadow is going to tell us something about the direction of our light source. And so in this scenario, this light is just sun with no clouds. Okay, that's what we're emulating here. And so a lot of times you'll have a day where the sun's going to be out and there. It's going to be a little overcast or patchy clouds, stuff like that. And sometimes, especially when the sun is sort of up high in the sky, it's sort of difficult to figure out where exactly the sun is. Not in Phoenix, but in some places. And one of the tricks you can use to make sure you line things up is look at the shadow to know exactly where to stand. Because I was thinking, you know, here's where I needed to stand to get that directly behind her. But actually, it's over here. And so this is going to be sort of a guide to help us figure out where the light is. So the shadows are going to help us out. And then we're also looking at these shadows to see how hard or soft this light is. We can see that this, look at these shadows down here. I don't know if the cameras can see this. This is not a totally opaque shadow, right? We can see through this. It's not totally black, which means that there has to be light coming from somewhere else, right, to fill this in. And that light are these lights here. So we're going to ask to see if they can be at least these lights turned off, and we'll see if this changes any. But this is giving us a clue to what's happening out here. And also notice on Lex's face, we can see her face clearly. And how is that possible? Well, we can see that because, yeah, we have this huge white reflector right here. We have the ground, and we're getting lots of stuff. And then also, I don't know if the camera can come over, but when we look in Lex's eyes, you can, since we turned that off, we're okay. But you could clearly see this white reflection in your eyes. Now it's gone because these are being turned off. So all of those things that we talked about, specular highlights, the shadows, the transition area, those are giving us clues. And also, see if you can show these guys. Look at the specular highlights in your eyes. They're tiny, tiny, tiny specular highlights. And we can see the shadows, all the stuff that we talked about earlier. And it is drastically different than what we're seeing on Lex. Even though we're in the same room, her light is totally different than your light. Just based on position, which is really cool. Okay, so the first thing we want to do is work out how are we going to make this photo pleasing. And so what we're going to do is, John, I'm going to see, this is really heavy, but can you try to lower that by about, so it's the second, just get that one section down. We're going to try to have the sun go down a little bit, so we have more of a golden hour thing. I really tightened it up. You might have to use bionics. There you got it. So, we have this very large stand. Cool. The other thing is he's being very gentle because the filament in that, if it jars, it'll break, and then we won't have a sun, and then the whole thing will just come crashing down literally, and it'll be horrible. So, a little bit. There you go. That's cool. And then twist it this way. There you go. Keep going, keep going, keep going. Boy, no. That's it. Yeah. So you can see it, though, right, when he's moving it. As like, getting brighter and not so bright. We'll talk about that with studio lighting, about feathering the light. There's all kinds of other things. It's so much about light. Okay, so I think you're going to have to come this way so we can show her. Oh, you're over there. Okay, perfect. So what we see here is now, notice on the hair here is just got this golden, a silver lining basically, right? And that's what we originally learned when we talked about the position of light, that light from behind is going to create a silhouette. We're getting fill light from all these reflections, but the dynamic range is such that if we try to take a picture of this, her hair is going to be totally blown out. In fact, let's try it. We're going to just take a shot really quickly, and then I'm going to put you guys to work as far as the assistance part of this works. So I'm going to take a shot, and I am shooting this. We're also going to try to figure out how to properly expose this, because our camera is probably going to have issues with this. But I'm going to shoot this at an ISO. I'm going to keep it at about 400. I'm shooting an aperture value of 4.5, so we have pretty shallow depth of field. And John's behind you. And I'm just going to show you what happens when we try this. We have all of the issues that we talked about earlier, where we have an image. The color isn't right, the contrast is really low, and it's not exposed correctly. Okay? And we know the reason for the contrast issues is because the light is coming straight into the lens, which we don't like. John, do we have that flag right there? I'm going to put you in charge of flagging this. Okay. Okay? So the way this works, to flag a light, I'm going to grab this, is basically we're extending our lens hood. We're just making it a lot longer. And so what you'll do is you're going to look to see how the light is falling on the lens, and you're going to lower this until it's shaded. Cast a shadow. Yeah. And yeah, till it casts a shadow. And then we're going to start there, and then we're going to keep working. This, by the way, you can do with a newspaper, a magazine, your hand, whatever you have works. You don't have to have a fancy flag like this. And so I'm going to, again, zip over here, see if you can get me. There you go, perfect. All right, so now let's take a look. All we did was add a flag. That's all we did. And so that's the difference. So before, after. And let me see if I can get a little bit closer picture to match that one. So we'll do it again before and after. We're going to shoot 2 in a row so we can do. So come on out. And we're going to shoot these 2 in a row. So this is with no flag, and then flag. Perfect. And keep this up. Just there you go. Okay, good. Now the exposures aren't right on this, but we're going to show these back to back so you can actually see them. Can I hand this to you? Thank you. So back to back we have flag on the right, no flag on the left. You can see how that changed the contrast dramatically just by doing that. Now we're doing this pretty extreme where we have the sun pretty low, but you'll see the same thing if you take your lens hood off in some situations where you're going to start having issues with contrast because light is coming into the lens. All right? So if you're shooting with light, this golden hour kind of light really low, it's great to have somebody help you just flag the light. All they have to do is put shade on the lens, and you have to make sure that whatever you're using to flag the light isn't in the lens, which is what I did. It's like, hey. And then you'll get to something like this. Okay, the problem with this, she has no specular highlights. So let's take a look at her eyeballs. And you'll see, so it's underexposed, and we really don't have any interesting specular highlights there, right? Her eyes look sort of dead. There's nothing to shape the light on her face. It's sort of a flat photo. So what we're going to do next is we're going to shoot the same thing. Let's not do that on that one. We're gonna, no, please don't do the same thing to me I did to you. Yeah, I own this one, that one I didn't. Okay, so what we're gonna do is, by the way, if you didn't hear it, John's like, catch. So what we're gonna do is, we have an issue with the exposure on this. This is underexposed. We wanna fix that. So I'm gonna start shooting in manual mode. And if you don't know how to shoot in manual mode, Google it. You'll find, no, Google Mark Wallace manual mode, and you'll see a video on how to shoot in manual mode. And for this, I've got to figure out what the proper exposure is. And so if I depend on my light meter and I just fill the frame with what we're shooting, I'm probably going to get the same underexposed issue. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to zoom way in on Lex's face, way, way, way in, and then I'm going to make the exposure based on just her face. So I'm eliminating all this bright light in the frame. And so all I'm doing is I'm getting uncomfortably close, like this. Yeah, she loves this. And then what I'll do is I will change my aperture. We were shooting at 4.5, and then we're shooting at 30th of a second, which is not fast enough, right? That's not fast enough. So what I'll have to do in this situation, there's two things I can do. Well, three. I could use a tripod, which would help to make my camera not so shaky. So at 30th of a second, I'm going to run into problems. My shutter speed should be about 100th of a second for this lens, because this is a 70 millimeter lens. So I could use a tripod, but if Lex moves, we're still going to get blur. So that's not so good. The second thing I can do is use a flash, but the whole point of this is no flash. The third thing I can do is I need to increase my ISO sensitivity. And in my opinion, it's better to have an image that is clear with a little bit of noise than an image that's blurry. Okay, so that's what we're going to do. And then what we're going to do is we're going to add a reflector. That's the fourth thing we can do to bring the light up. But first we're going to just shoot this in manual mode and see if we have it dialed in. And so I'm going to increase my ISO from 400 all the way up to 1600. And we'll take a peek there. And now we're at 125. And then if you could flag for me again, please. And then, yeah, so here we go. Perfect. Get back just a hair. Perfect. Okay. Now what we have is, again, we have a photo that's exposed for her face. You can see that that exposure has been corrected. We've got John back there, which is really cool. But still, our highlights, specular highlights in her eyes are not so special. So let's do this. Let's start adding some joy to this. So would you like to be reflector? Reflector. So what we're going to do is we're going to have you over here on this side, because if we go over there, the cameras won't be able to see. And what we're going to do is we're going to have you come sort of to this side like this. And normally you're thinking, well, I should be here, right? But if we bounce to the side, something like this, what we're going to get is we're going to get, I'll put this on the floor so you can sort of see, we're going to get light coming in and bouncing to the side, and we're going to emulate more of that 45-degree angle. So if we go straight on like this, we're going to get flat light. Yeah, by putting it to the side, we're going to get more actual form, three-dimensional form. Normally I would put it on this side because of the way that the light is shining. And so we're not going to get the perfect light from this, because I'd normally be on the other side, but then our cameras can't see us. And we're going to try this with white, and then we're going to try this with silver. The problem with silver, I'm going to do this to your camera right there. You can see, I can't see anything, it's killing me. So this is going to make you squint just as much as bright sunlight is going to make you squint. So, and it's really unfair, see? It hurts, right? Take it. Okay, so let's try with white. And we want to get this close. And the reason we want it close is going to give us soft, and close is going to give us a nice, large, effective size. And then I will try metering again once we have that up there to see how we do. And I'm just a manual mode freak, so there we go, like that. And then we're definitely going to need to flag this light again. I could probably just do it with my hand. Yeah, I can do it with my hand. All right, let's take a look at that. And this is going to be overexposed because I didn't compensate for the reflector. See how we have this much light on this side? So what I'll do here, if you can put that up again, I am going to have you flag this. So bring this back this way. There you go. There you go, just like that. Perfect. There you go. Yeah, up a little bit. Perfect. Okay, and we're doing this inside, but we're going to compare these shots. Obviously, we would not do this in an environment like this. But see how this light has now become much more directional? And what we'll do is we're going to compare this first shot and this second shot here. So you can start seeing here how our light was very flat, underexposed, to now this is a directional light. See the difference between the light on this side of her face and this side? And now we're starting to get a specular highlight in her eyes as well. So let's just go in on this really quickly. There you go. You can start seeing that reflection there. So we're getting some specular highlights in her eyes. It's pretty cool. I like that. Okay, so the next thing we're going to do, we're going to try the same thing, but now we're going to use silver. And silver, one of the tricks, silver is something you normally would use when it's very, very bright outside. And this is the job I had when I was lector. And so in this situation here, it's easy to see where this light is falling. Outside is not the same because it's very, really bright. So what I normally do is I'll look at the ground and I'll bring the light in and then walk it up. So that's sort of how you do it. You can sort of find the light on the ground, and once you find the light, then walk it up. Okay, that's one of the best ways to do this. Because you can see on the white, it's really hard to see. You can sort of see that, and that'll be more of what it's like out in nature. Okay? You want to try it? Sure. Okay. All right. We're not getting rid of you totally, but...
Do you want closer or farther away because it's stronger?
For this, let's try this back just a little ways.
Okay. Sorry. Okay.
I know. And what we want to do, remember, I love my jerk stopper. Remember, the direction of light not only is left to right, but also height. So this guy...
Up higher?
Yes.
Okay.
We want to have it up high. And the thing about this reflector is it's built...
Like that would be better?
Yeah, or this. I'm going to grab this from you.
Okay.
You can actually do this.
Okay.
Yeah, so you can sort of figure out the light, and you have to sort of peek through. And yeah. Okay? Reflector wrangling takes a bit of practice. So once that's there... By the way, when you're metering light, you don't want to get between the reflector and the subject when you're trying to figure out exactly what kind of light to have. So I'm going to block this. Can I get a flag, please? Could I get a flag? Do you have a flag? There we go. I'll back up so you can do that. Just a little bit more. All right. Okay. So we're going to do this one more time. Give me a little bit more flag there. There you go. Okay. We'll take a look at that. I think I underexposed this a little bit, but we'll see if we have... Yeah, now look at our specular highlight. See how small that is? It's teeny tiny, which is really interesting. So what we would try to do, and with this reflector, it's tricky because it's silver. And with silver, here we go. Is it on there? No. Perfect. With silver, I'm going to grab this from you. I'm going to have you guys step aside just for a second. When you're working with one of these guys, notice how the shape of this changes. So from this angle, we're just getting a narrow strip. Over here, I can sort of change that to a much larger patch. So what had happened is because of the angle that we were using this at, we were getting a very, very small light instead of a very broad light. And so for this, we would probably shoot from over here and play with that and maybe even get in closer so we get a larger specular highlight.